Oh, hey, Lou, you know that message you sent your wife on WhatsApp?
John, how did you know about that message I sent to my wife?
Oh,
What's that?
what's up? It's
Lawsuit is
Friday,
what's
January
up.
30th, and this is IT SPARC Cast CV of the Week, where we pick a common vulnerability and exposure entry that you need to know about and how to mitigate ASAP. And today we're taking things a little differently. We're talking about two news stories that are security related and related to chat clients. And the first one is WhatsApp. So WhatsApp is really well known and used outside the US, and it is used a bit in the US, and it's got an interesting reputation in the US that a lot of times it's used for less savory discussions. But in the rest of Europe, because of the difficulty in making phone calls across country lines and things like that, that it is very, very popular. And I know many businesses that rely on it as part of their day-to-day workflow. And so that's why we wanted to bring this up in an enterprise IT security based podcast, is that there is a new lawsuit, and this comes from Bloomberg.com, by the way. A new lawsuit claims that the Meta platforms can access or infer contents of WhatsApp's messages despite WhatsApp's long-standing claim of being end-to-end encrypted. So in Congress, Mark Zuckerberg has said it's end-to-end encrypted. I have no ability to go in and take a look at the messages. I have nothing, no ability to do that. I couldn't do it if you gave me a subpoena and made me do it. And that's just the operation of WhatsApp. That's how it works. This plaintiff is arguing that this constitutes a very serious breach of privacy and trust, and potentially violates consumer protection laws. And if true, then I would agree with that. Meta's position is that this is not true. It does have end-to-end encryption, and that the lawsuit is without merit.
Is it possible for both of those to be true? The answer is yes.
Correct. So this dispute comes across on the definition of access, right? So there's content versus metadata, there's client-side processing, there's backups, reporting, and things like that. So with end-to-end encryption, you're not fully protected because local side on either end of the connection would be unencrypted. And so if you're backing up your phone or your laptop, those messages might be available there. There's also metadata. So there's a message from Lou to me. That information would be available to Meta, just because they have to route it properly. And the timing of those messages and the volume of those messages, that obviously they would have to have access to, even if they didn't have access to the contents of it. So the reason that this matters is that Meta has based the value of WhatsApp on the fact that it is encrypted end to end. And as I said, in the US, it's got a little bit less savory kind of view. And that's because sometimes it might be used for criminal activities, for adulterous activities, and all kinds of other things. I'm not saying that's the only use for it, but that's some of the reputation that it might have.
Any one of these encrypted services could absolutely be used that way. But I think the real problem is here, John, is we're trying to figure out what does confidential mean?
Correct.
What does it mean?
It's a good question, but I think that when you start putting this into enterprise IT, there are several companies that standardized on WhatsApp as the means of communication, especially overseas. And if you're sending trade secrets across WhatsApp, then you really want to start getting worried about whether the content is viewable or not. You can argue that even some of the metadata might be questionable, like the fact that this person had this conversation with this other person at a specific time, and there was this much volume. Maybe that's something you want to restrict access to, but definitely the contents of the messaging is very, very important. That if you care about encryption and that's why you're using it, that it is in place. And I feel that Meta has put themselves in a position similar to Apple, in that this is something that they care about. And Apple claims to care about your data privacy, not keeping some of your data unencrypted on its servers, and making sure that they're not using your data to monetize you, although to some degree they do. But I think that if this type of thing comes out against a company who has based their reputation on it, it could be incredibly damaging if it's proved true. And it's something that you need to look at from your enterprise IT standpoint and to follow. And we will follow up as more data comes out on this as to whether WhatsApp is something that can be trusted as a platform to share your corporate private data.
Now, one more thing happened, like really breaking, coming to press here, and we think we need to adhere. So, in the case of WhatsApp, the question has become the lawsuit just isn't about encryption. It's about whether privacy promises to match how modern messaging platforms actually operate. So it's about the metadata and everything around it. At the same time we were looking at this, something new came out. So something very popular that's popped up with multiple AI models is to put a wrapper in front of them. There's multiple services that promise you the ability to access more than one AI model and compare the information and offer that as a paid service. And one such application is called Chat and Ask AI. And we get this via 404 Media. They do a pretty good job of digging into privacy issues. And this is a nasty one. So this one is about 50 million users on Google Play and Apple App Store, left hundreds of millions of users' private conversations exposed due to a backend misconfiguration. So the key thing here is the backend misconfiguration wasn't in the models they offer. They offer ChatGPT, Anthropic Claude, and also Google Gemini. Those models are doing their job as far as what's expected from privacy. It is the aggregation platform itself that caused this. It was an independent security researcher found that apps used of Google Firebase was misconfigured, allowing anyone to access the app's database storage without proper authentication. The exposed data set reportedly contained 300 million messages from more than 25 million users. Okay, this is a major privacy breach, including private chats about highly sensitive topics like suicide, drug production, hacking instructions, along with timestamps, model configuration, and chat histories. All right. I guarantee you there are people in your organization running this with your proprietary data.
And that's why you really need to pay attention to these things. Sometimes these types of issues that when they come up in the news, you see it as a privacy issue for the end user. But you got to start thinking about this as one of the biggest security problems in enterprise is shadow IT. And we started using a term last year called shadow AI. So the reason shadow IT and shadow AI exists is because IT is not providing something that the customer feels they need, whether they actually need it or not, but they feel they need something. So they go outside of the band of what's provided to them, the tools that are provided to them, the hardware that's provided to them, the access that's provided to them, and they bring their own device, they bring their own software, and that becomes a problem because you don't control it, you don't know what's going on. So this is an education problem, this is an enforcement problem, and it's a monitoring problem. And I'm not talking about surveillance type monitoring, but if my laptop is being used by me for work, you should know what software is running on it and why it's being installed.
But even this, we're talking about something on a phone, right? This is a phone-based software, and I guarantee you your users are using this for their day-to-day work.
Some of your users are absolutely using it. 50 million users have downloaded this app, and this isn't the only one. So you need to be aware of what apps are out there, what your team is using, and then as opposed to just cracking down the hammer and banning them and giving them a hard time, ask them why. Why
and
are you
educate them as to what's happening here, why it concerns you. I mean, you have to tell the users why you care about this.
100%.
And a lot of folks have trouble doing that.
But and I've seen so many IT departments that are just straight up like, stop doing that. You know, you can't, and even go to the manager of the person and get them, some sort of disciplinary situation. And that's fine if that's what's required. But at the other hand, if you are more collaborative and say like, well, maybe there's something that this chatbot aggregator does that actually is beneficial to their job, or that they believe is beneficial to their job that they can't do somewhere else. Educate them on what tools that they have access to that they could get the exact same thing done, or look into an alternative that you could provide and have more faith in.
And this is going to be a real challenge because right now we've seen presses from like Microsoft wants you to use Copilot, Google wants you to use Gemini, Apple wants you to use Gemini. Okay, well, their version of it.
Right.
But Anthropic is cloud is well known for coding and being really good for code. I use Grok on XAI all the time. There's some things that I think it does really, really well. So the tug of being able to get access to multiple models through a single application, it's a valid use case. So the question is, will a vendor step up, or has a vendor stepped up? Do you know of a vendor that stepped up and guaranteed the security of the incoming stuff? If you do, give us, hit us up. We'd
Absolutely,
like to know
absolutely.
about it. But you need to talk to your users about this one.
But yeah, and you really need to be focusing on those enterprise class solutions and not fly by night operations that really aren't designed to think about security from day one. And that's what we're seeing here. And it's hard to say 50 million users is fly by night, but obviously they've got some technical problems.
They've obviously got some issues with that. Do we have any user feedback today?
We do. So we did an episode towards the end of last year about a significant authorization bug in UniFi Access. UniFi Access is what controls their door locks and things like that. And there was a bug where the system was ignoring the authentication part of the API requests. So authentication was part of the API, but it was ignored. So you could actually send API messages without any authentication or with bogus authentication, and it would still get through. That's no bueno when you're talking about being able to control whether your doors lock or not, and to be able to unlock them when you don't want them and to lock them when you don't want to, for example, like during a fire drill. And so Henry reached out to us on YouTube. He had just come across that episode, and he was like, no auth on the AP? Nah, come on, really? UniFi, my old friend, have a seat. And definitely understand the concern there. The good news is that the bug was patched, and it was patched several months ago. So if you are running UniFi Access, make sure you're on the newest revs of it, which they're pretty good about pushing those on you anyway. So, but it is really good that they fixed it. But I do appreciate Henry's comment here, because that was a bad one. And that's one that you don't want to see happen. Physical security compromises is really, really tough.
Yeah, we've been very happy with Ubiquiti's forward patching policy, and if you've configured it correctly, it's just going to take the patch automatically.
Absolutely.
And that's the default configuration of the system.
Yeah.
So thanks for stopping by here.
Yeah, that is going to cover this episode. We couldn't do this podcast without listeners like you and Henry. We would love to hear what you think. Do you have another topic you want us to cover? Do you think we're blowing this whole chat app situation out of control? Do you have other thoughts on UniFi Access and its level of security? Send email to feedback@itsparkcast.com. Hit us up on X @ITSparkcast. If you're on YouTube, like Henry, you can leave a comment down below. We read every comment, every bit of feedback we get. We respond to most. And if it's particularly interesting or insightful, we will read it out on our episode. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications. That way you never miss an episode. And if you're really enjoying what you're hearing, make sure that you let us know, because we do love to hear that. And we want to know if we're heading in the right direction for you. We'll be back next time with more news from the world of enterprise IT. Take care.
Stay safe out there.